Welcome back to the Ketogenic Bodybuilding YouTube channel. I'm Rob Goodwin, your host. It's been a long time since we've uploaded a video on YouTube, and we're bringing back the Ketogenic Bodybuilding channel by popular demand. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically just duplicate or replicate our now very popular Ketogenic Bodybuilding podcast that you can download on every major podcast platform: iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, all of them. And I got a lot of people that wanted us to just, hey, turn on the cameras and roll some footage of, me just literally sitting here basically doing the podcast. So you're behind the scenes if you're watching on YouTube. So you can either listen to it, the audio version, on every major podcast platform. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to that. And check that out and download the podcast, or hey, you got me right here on YouTube. So, and whenever I can, the benefit I guess that you'll get on YouTube is I can throw up some occasional visuals for references that I may make throughout the podcast that might clarify a few things. So that might make it a little cooler. So maybe I can throw in some cool edits. But without further ado, you're coming in on episode 8 of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Podcast, YouTube edition. Episode 8 of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Podcast. Yeah, I know. It's been too long. A couple of weeks now, I think, right? Something like that. Yeah, for sure, like a couple of weeks. We're actually, if you're listening to the podcast on one of the major podcast platforms, we're actually, on this episode, I'm experimenting. I'm kind of kicking the tires on actually replicating this on YouTube. So if you're wanting to look behind the scenes and see what I look like doing all these silly shenanigans, then definitely go to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/ketogenic bodybuilding. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching, please hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell, so you'll always be in the know when we upload something new. Because my goal now, if you like this, if you like the YouTube thing along with the audio version, and then hell, I'll keep doing it. Why not, right? So the one benefit is that I can throw up some occasional references and visuals, and if I'm talking about a particular thing and I want to give that visual reference, you can have that. So either way you want to experience this, if you're one of the people out there that actually enjoy this podcast, then now you've got another option on YouTube, and hopefully it translates well. So why anybody would want to sit there and stare at me talk, I have no idea, but here I am. So hope you enjoy episode 8. I'll be honest with you, what kept me out of the loop. And first, let me go ahead and give some shout outs here and thank yous. It's very humbling that I have received, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm going to be extremely honest. I've probably, if I had to guess off the top of my head, about a dozen. Now, that's not Joe Rogan numbers, but I've got about a dozen people who actually took the time out of their day to, create an email and send it to me saying, where's the podcast? We missed the podcast. Where's episode 8? What the hell? Get off your ass and do the podcast. And that meant so much to me that people actually not only enjoy it, but literally look forward to this. And so it's really, really humbling and exciting to know that it's something that you want. And so that really motivates me to try to actually make this, worthy of something you'd want to continue to listen to week after week. And now, if you so choose to do so, you can actually watch the whole thing unfold on YouTube. And hopefully that experience will get better as we go too, because the last couple of weeks, though, once we decided to transition the podcast over to YouTube, I had to clean up this office a little bit. So if you're watching, my office was a shithole. I had freaking cables and wires and cords and microphones and stuff everywhere. And, I had to dust off my camera and, get the lighting right. And, because you gotta, look somewhat like, what the hell you're doing if you're producing a YouTube channel, producing that content. So it took me, a week or so within my insanely busy schedule dealing with clients and the ins and outs of working in the trenches of my gym to get everything right so I could replicate this on YouTube. So here we are. So hopefully this goes well. I don't really have a lot to discuss today on episode 8 because I've been so busy, working with new clients, which has been fantastic. My online coaching has exploded, and to all of you out there listening that have become an online client, thank you. You'll never know how much it means to me, and I'm so excited to be working with you. To all my online clients that I work with, thank you. And if you're one of my in the gym clients and you're listening to, you know, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for all your support, especially through easily one of the most, chaotic, crazy ass years of my lifetime, and probably many out there as well. So thanks for hanging in, and thank you for your support. So for all of you out there, you're awesome. Thank you so much. So today, I basically just wanted to kind of wing it, and thank God for members of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group, and to some of my followers on Instagram. And if you are interested, you can follow me on Instagram at @TheRealRobGoodwin. Please give me a follow on Instagram. And if you're not a member of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group, check us out and join the group. One of my lovely and talented admins will get you approved promptly. And then you can be part of the island of misfit toys that is the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group, because we are unique. And I talk about that a lot. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that uniqueness today, and maybe not allowing that uniqueness to get taken too far. And I want to talk a little bit about how in the keto world and that low carb world, there's a lot of gurus and what I would even call keto zealots out there that they're part of what I am now referring to as part of the new fitness cancel culture. Okay. And some of this has to do with, if you listen to episode 7, I took the first hour and we talked about that particular cancel culture thing, one element of it. And what I mean by that is I'd really like to get to the point where, we can really focus more on what we have in common and come up with, good, engaging discourse and conversation and dig into some things without somebody always chiming in and being a part of this new cancel culture. Meaning, well, I'll give you some examples. Some very quick, and I don't want to dwell on this. I don't want to take this negative. I don't want to take this too negative. And I tried not to make it negative last week. We talked about the argument of volume versus intensity. You got the higher volume training people out there, then there's the lower volume, higher intensity training crowd out there. And whatever group that you belong to, whatever you subscribe to, whatever ideology blows your skirt up, hey man, I'm cool with that. And the point was, if you're digging it, run with it. And to take that a step further, let me qualify that statement a little bit, to be serious just for a second. If you are training hard and you are dieting hard and you have a particular goal in mind of how you want your physique to look, and in your heart and soul, you are thinking to yourself, there's really not much more I can do to improve on what I'm doing to change my body. The course that I'm on in your heart and soul is, without a doubt in your mind, the absolute best course for you, for your goals, for your genetics. And if that's the case, I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. I want you to keep doing it. If you're happy with it, cool. If you maybe think some improvements could be made, maybe you're looking for a spark or a different point of view or a different ideology, then hey, we can entertain that as well. Maybe you can, take a detour off what you've been doing and go through a little cycle of something new, a different kind of training approach, a different type of nutrition approach. It could be something as simple as adding some carbohydrates into your program timed properly. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today as well. But my point is I don't want to, I'm tired of this my way or the highway, my way is absolute and your way is wrong mentality. You don't come into my group, you don't invade my space and with some air of superiority like you are God and what you do is the be all end all way of doing things, and to entertain any other concept or ideology would be batshit. Just don't bring that here. Instead, there will be cases where we will agree to disagree. Maybe we can entertain certain aspects of a viewpoint that we are discussing and complement each other on, intelligent conversation and, raising particular arguments that perhaps maybe we haven't entertained before and adding that to our repertoire, so to speak. So that needs to be the way it's entertained. So my goal, again, with, having a little bit of fun on episode 7 with, a particular person who kind of invaded the airspace, basically to say what I'm doing is complete and utter total bullshit and what he is doing is the absolute only way. Well, that's intellectually dishonest and completely ludicrous, completely out of the gate. So I'm never going to tell somebody you're completely wrong unless there's just what they say is just utter completely ridiculous. But if you're say, hey, I like to work out for 3 hours in the gym, I like to do 50 sets per body part, and what I'm doing is working so incredibly well for me, I would never even dream of doing anything different, then I'm going to say to you, congratulations. Keep doing what you're doing, don't change a thing, and if that works for you, then I applaud that. That doesn't work well for me because I've tried it. I've been down that road, and what I do, I truly do think, and I truly believe works the best for me. And maybe it's, partly, to the fact that I've been experimenting on my own physique for nearly 3 decades, and I've had the unique honor and privilege of working with thousands of unique individuals in the trenches of the gym floor for, 2.5 decades. You learn a few things when you do that. So, I entertain all ideas, especially, in our social media interactions, or if you want to shoot me an email or leave a comment on this YouTube or a comment on the podcast, that's fine. I would love to hear your point of view. But don't walk in with this cancer culture bullshit and say, what I believe is the only way, and if I don't like your way, I'm canceling that shit out and I'm telling everybody that it's false. And so let's have some fun examples with that. And because and what I'm going to throw at you have all 100% happened over the course of many years, dealing with people, the keyboard Carls out there, pecking away behind their computers in their mom's basement. And, the first thing they want to do when they see something, posted online is pick it apart and, come out and be part of the troll network and, show their vast superiority. Well, that doesn't fly with me. If you want to, again, engage in some intelligent conversation, fine. But you don't come oozing out of the woodwork and start slinging your bullshit at me unless you have something, if you can really back it up and raise an argument. And then I will say, that's interesting viewpoint. I will entertain that, or I will consider that, or I hadn't thought of that before. Or I may say, you know what, that's a fantastic point, and I've actually worked with that ideology. It doesn't really work for me, but I could understand how it might work for some. And then we can just agree to disagree and have some fun with it and still be friends, right? So that's the way I want to approach that. So, part of that, sorry to get a drink, part of that cancel culture thing that I'm talking about is I've literally maybe put up a video of a workout that I was doing, or an exercise, I'll throw up a clip on Instagram, or maybe, or whatever, on the Facebook group or what have you, on the YouTube channel, of me doing an exercise or a series of exercises or an actual, workout or whatever. And instead of somebody saying, hey, cool workout, oh, thanks for that, or whatever, you get that one guy or that one girl that pops up and says, oh, you're doing a leg press. You should never do a leg press. That's crazy. They don't work. I've literally had people say that. I've literally had people say, and I've mentioned this on the podcast already, oh, Smith machines, they absolutely do not work. If you're not using a barbell, then you're not going to get results and grow muscle. Okay, well, we've already been down that road. I don't need to crawl down it any further. I've literally had people, on that same leg press video say to me, why do you wrap your knees? Because there was a particular video where I had some knee wraps on, because there are times when I go very, very heavy or very high intensity on several sets of intense leg presses. I like to have some compression on my knees. It works for me. It makes my knees feel better. Okay? So I do that. If you don't like to do that, that's fine. Then don't do that. But don't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. And the same thing comes for like a lifting belt. I've had myself and other members of the groups, have a picture of themselves with a belt on while doing a set of heavy squats. And then you get somebody that oozes out of the woodwork to say, don't wear belts. Well, hey man, if wearing a belt works for him or her, or if wearing a belt works for me on that last set of heavy squats, and if I feel better and more stable with it, then leave me alone. It's none of your damn business. Move along. Scroll along. Nothing to see here for you. It's none of your damn business. Because you're certainly not going to come up with some hard, cutting edge evidence that's going to convince me that me wearing a lifting belt or knee compression wraps on my knees is going to be detrimental to my health. That's just not going to be the case. If you prefer not to do these things, fine, don't do them. I could give two shits less. Move along. Okay? And so don't be part of that cancel culture. And you definitely see it in the nutrition world. We talked about in the past people that, somebody may come into the group and say, what's your favorite whey protein supplement? And then all you got to do is wait for it. It's going to happen. It's like CrossFitters and vegans. You don't have to bring it up. Trust me, at some point, they will. Don't worry, it's coming. You're going to get the guy that comes in and says, oh, why are you doing whey protein? You don't need whey protein. Just eat real food. Oh, thanks for the insight, chumpy. I really needed to know that. What a fucking revelation that was. Oh, you mean real food is better than shakes? No shit, Sherlock. I already know that. It's a supplement. It's supplementing my diet. So if I'm trying to get 300 grams of protein in on a gain phase or whatever, and because of my crazy, busy, hectic lifestyle, I need to occasionally opt for a shake because of the utter convenience of it, then I choose to do that, and it's going to do nothing for me but benefit me. If that's not your thing, move along. Seep back into the woodwork and go about your business. We don't need to hear about it. You're not impressing anybody. If you don't think shakes work for some bizarre ass reason, or if you don't think they need to be consumed, hey, here's a news flash. Don't consume them, okay? That's all you got to do. But to come in and tell a hardworking mother of three who's kicking ass, working 2 jobs and gone to grad school, that I've just given that I've got eating, 5 meals a day and a particular protein requirement, and inside that busy schedule, she maybe doesn't have time at that particular moment to grill a ribeye, then maybe having a shake might work better for her in that moment in time. Nobody's suggesting you're going to eat or drink 6 shakes a day. So just rather than showing that ignorance and just pissing somebody off, because that's all you're going to do, just move along if that's not for you. We don't need to hear it. And the list goes on and on and on. So, I just wanted to put a period on this cancel culture. That's hard to say. Cancel culture bullshit. We've got enough of that in the political world right now. We don't need to bring it into the fitness world. But, at the same time, you sort of have, what I referred to earlier, you've got the zealots out there. And that happens in this world too, because, I'm currently in a contest prep. And, if you've been listening, you know this. And I'm currently in, and it's going well. I'm currently in a gain phase. So it's it's this, the magical time right now because I can eat. Sometimes it's, I even get tired of eating. I'm taking in, 3,500 calories a day. If I get the occasional, higher carb day, it's not a big deal. Everything's going to be fine. In fact, currently in this gain phase, I'm taking in roughly 75 and on some days on the upward of 100 grams of carbohydrate a day. Now, because this is ketogenic bodybuilding group, some people will just kind of wander in, discount the whole bodybuilding part. They'll discount the part where I talk about this being a hybrid protocol, combining a lot of, physique competitor bodybuilding style methodology along with a primal low carb ketogenic diet mentality. They'll dismiss that altogether and think they're just going to fly in here and tell us that, oh, ketogenic, well, didn't you know that you can't have any more than 30 grams of carbohydrates? Your fat has to be 80%. Your protein can only be, 20% or 15%. The numbers are all over the place. Well, spend 15 minutes in the group and you're going to find out, you're going to get a barrage of replies, very intelligent replies from some admins and some members that will remind you, hey, we're a ketogenic bodybuilding group focused on body composition and building a very elite physique that maximizes lean muscle tissue. And it's just not about, dieting. We're not a group of dieting cubicle sitting secretaries, eating keto cheesecake, okay? We're not sucking down fat bombs. We're, meticulously adhering to a specific set of macros that are designed to help us maximize lean mass and get as lean as humanly possible and bring in, as much fat as we need to fuel our activities and our output, depending on that particular person's unique genetics and goals. And, the list goes on and on. We've been down that road. So you get the zealots that come in. And so, sometimes I don't even take the time to mention, oh, I'm taking in 75 to 100 grams of carbohydrates right now in my gain phase. I'll do that for about 2 months. Everybody's going to lose their freaking mind. They're not going to let me explain myself typically. Now, some do, but we've got a great group of people and most of them get it. They know that we use carbohydrates as a productive tool in the toolbox to serve a particular purpose. And, if you've spent any time listening to me or some of the admins in the group, that we like to, work carbohydrates around our training. We like to do structured refeeds. And those numbers generally are different for everybody because we're all unique. And the funny thing is right now with me being in a gain phase, we taking in anywhere from, depending on the day, I could be taking in 3,100 calories to 3,500 calories a day, and just, that could be 12 to 1,300 calories from protein. That could be 13 to 1,500 calories from healthy fats. And that could be, maybe only, 300 to, 400 calories from carbohydrate. But when you do the breakdown, hell, there are some days when I'm taking in 75, 80 grams of carbohydrates. It's only representing like 8% of my total nutrient intake for that day. It's still extremely low for me. And most of it is consumed around training. So it's gone by the time I do that last set. It's a structured thing. I do want to move some insulin around right now. I do want to take advantage of that anabolic effect. Everything is done with a purpose, and I've been playing with this shit for years. So, as much as those cancel culture people will drive you crazy, the keto zealots coming out of the woodwork can be just as bad. So let's not be those people. Let's all focus on the things that we agree on and our strengths. And let's not focus on, oh, it's this number or that percentage or, a great example is this. And I wanted to get to this anyway because I find this extremely important. And by the way, I'm just winging this shit, by the way. I've got like 4 notes and I've already gone off the notes. Intermittent fasting. We get that a lot. I get that a lot as a coach. And oftentimes I will be in the bodybuilding Facebook group and somebody will say, make a reference to wanting to put on as much lean mass as possible. I want to get jacked. I want to get big. I want to get ripped or whatever. Maybe want to compete. And then they go on to talk about what they're doing. And they may say that they're, doing time restricted feeding, they're doing intermittent fasting. I've even had people say that, use that same verbiage about getting as big as possible and as jacked as possible, and they're eating 1 or 2 meals a day. And again, if you are getting the results that you're looking for doing that, and you like that, I have no problem with that. Fasting can be a great thing depending on your goals. There are some people out there that can't eat every 2 to 3 hours like I do. And that's another reason why I bring it up, because when you download my rules of engagement, it's been downloaded like 12,000 times now or better. I think it's far more than that now. One of the things that you see in there, or episode 2 of this podcast, I talk about, I believe in frequent feeding of nutrients. The old school, eat every 2 to 3 hours and nourish the body throughout the day, if the goal is to maximize lean mass. And people freak out or often just dismiss that one. Well, okay, that's fine. And once again, if you're getting everything out of your program that your heart desires, then go for it. But at the same time, I need to bring you awareness as to why I do that, and why, intermittent fasting is something that I don't believe in if the goal is building that extreme stage-worthy kind of physique. Okay, we talk about, ketogenic bodybuilding, this brand being keto for the extreme physique culture, or keto for badasses. Well, you're going to have a hard time achieving that badass physique if you're doing a lot of intermittent fasting, a lot of time restricted feeding, whatever you want to call it, or if you're doing that 1 meal a day thing or whatever. You're going to have a tough time, and you might even have a tough time strict carnivore. I'm not against strict carnivore. I love carnivore. But even when I was doing carnivore, I always called it modified carnivore, because I did still use a little bit of carbohydrate around workouts, and I would still do occasional refeeds. So, I'm not one of these people that's just been eating ribeyes for the last 4 years. I truly do not believe I could maintain this particular physique if I weren't doing my frequent eating protocol. So intermittent fasting doesn't fit in as far as I'm concerned. And the cool thing is, what I was alluding to in the first place is finally, there are some compelling studies that have come out that support this. And, I'm not a big science study guy. No, it's not to say I don't trust it, believe in it, and read it. I do all the time. But there are plenty of people out there on YouTube, and there are plenty of podcasts out there of people that are just reciting studies and walking you through these long scientific controlled studies. I'm not that guy. I'm the boots on the ground guy. I'm the field general. I'm going to take this information, I'm going to throw it out to you as simply as I possibly can, and then you and I are going to march through the fucking battlefield and do damage. That's what I am. I'm a blue collar coach that's going to say, okay, let's strap up and let's get shit done. And this is how we do it. Okay. So that's sort of my approach. But there are 2 very compelling studies that have come out recently, finally, that support this. And I think, I could be wrong about this. I think Lane Norton actually talked about the most recent of these 2 studies in a YouTube video, and I could be wrong about that. I haven't watched it, but I think somebody posted it in the group and made a reference that he was citing some studies that showed that intermittent fasting, may not be the be-all, end-all, and there was some great data to support that, and he's right. So let me just talk about that for a second, because the reason I do want to talk about this particular study is it does support my belief system and my methodology of frequent eating throughout the day if the goal is to maximize lean mass. Remember that remark, lean gains. Because when you are trying to build as much muscle as you can, like I have for years and years and years, you don't want to lose it. And when you inevitably go into a cut to shred down and reveal that muscle, you will always lose some. But the goal is to lose as little as possible. So you create scenarios in your methodology that helps you maintain as much lean mass as possible. So in these studies, there's 2 of them. One of them was released in December 6, 2019 in the journal Reviews in Endocrine and Metabolic Disorders, which was a really cool study that showed that intermittent fasting might result in some loss of lean mass. But the better, even more complete study was recently released in September the 28th, 2020 in the, I don't know if it's JAMA or JAMA. I don't know. I've never heard anybody say it. I've just read it for years, their internal medicine journal. And the cool thing about this particular study is they had a group of people that engaged in time-restricted feeding. I think it was a 12-week study, which is, I think, significant enough. And they called it time-restricted feeding in that particular study, intermittent fasting. It's the same thing. You just, only eating in a smaller window throughout the day. And I think they were doing a 16-8. I'd have to refer back. But the thing is they found no significant difference in fat loss between the group that did intermittent fasting and the group that did just more of a standard, diet. I forget what they called it, but they were eating basically 3 meals a day with the option of 2 snacks. So the 3 meal a day with the option of 2 snacks people versus the intermittent fasting people, 12 weeks, they consumed the same amount of calories. That's important. So it wasn't necessarily that one was taking in less calories. They're taking in roughly the same amount of calories, but there was no significant change in weight loss between the two groups. Here's the thing that I'm going to bring up. I'm not going to bring up everything in the study. I'm going to bring you what I think is important that supports my ideology, is that the intermittent fasting group lost significantly more lean mass than the people that were eating 3 to 5 meals a day. Significantly more. And I believe it was 65%. Now, when you go into a cut, when you go into a caloric deficit, which is what you have to do to get lean, you're going to always lose some lean tissue. It's inevitable. But usually, if you're doing everything right, if you're getting in adequate protein, if you're training hard, all these things, if you can go through a long cut and get really freaking ripped and shredded, if you can get away with only losing about 20% of that weight loss comes from lean mass, then you're doing really good. That's about par or ideal. You're gonna lose some. So the goal is to try to keep it at about 20%. So I think 20 to 30% is the norm. So it's inevitable you're gonna lose some. You just have to deal with that shit, okay? But if I told you that if I take you into a caloric deficit and I have you eating every 2-3 hours or every 3-5 hours, whatever, and I'm giving you, adequate protein intake to help preserve lean mass, then your risk of losing any of that hard-earned lean mass that you put on is significantly less than if you were trying to get cut doing intermittent fasting. Which route would you choose? Exactly. So, sometimes people wonder, why does he believe in this old school, bodybuilding, eat every 2 to 3 hours kind of a thing? Because I always want to retain positive nitrogen balance. I want to do everything in my power to retain lean mass. I want to make sure that I'm getting adequate protein into my body and amino acids into my body, frequently throughout the day. The other problem with time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting to me is this. And once again, some people like intermittent fasting because it's one of the only ways that they can adhere to that caloric deficit. And if that's the case, that's great. I'm not poo-pooing intermittent fasting. If it works for you, great. If it is according to the goals that you have set for yourself, if that works for you, then I say you run with that. I totally support, your decision to do intermittent fasting. But for me, and for many of you out there that do have enough discipline to maintain your specific, prescription of macros that you've been given or that you've determined, you're going to do better in terms of reducing lean mass loss by doing a more frequent eating window. And the other thing is, as I was getting to, If you're doing one of these 1 or 2 meal a day things, if you're one of these people, once again, if it works for you, fine. But understand this. Think about it. I've got clients, men, hell, I've got some women that are, in the high 200 grams of protein per day. It's going to be, if you're doing 2 meals a day and you're taking in 275 grams of protein a day as the goal, you're going to divide 275 grams of protein up by 2 meals. That's not going to work well for you, okay? Because what we do know through data and research is, depending on how much lean mass you have, how big you are, anywhere between that 40 to 70 grams is about all, that's maximizing, protein intake for that meal, okay? I don't believe, and I think the data supports it, that taking in, 150 grams of protein, or 200 grams of protein in a meal, or if you're doing 1 meal a day, trying to cram 275, 300 grams of protein in that one meal, I think there's going to be a lot left on the table and you're wasting some. And, the data again supports that. So I definitely would not want to do it that way. I'd want to make sure that I'm getting an adequate stream of protein and energy driving, healthy fats throughout the day, broken up. And that's going to help me retain as much lean mass as possible. It's going to minimize lean mass loss, which is critical. And that's actually going to play into one of the questions that I'm going to answer today too. So, that's the goal. So this is why I don't do intermittent fasting. Now, if my goal was just to be a lean guy and healthy and just, I'm just a guy, I'm an insurance salesman or whatever, and I just want to I want to lose weight, I want to be a size 30 waist and, just be healthy and have good blood markers and blah, blah, blah. And if I can get there by doing intermittent fasting, fine. But if my goal is to maximize lean muscle, to have that more extreme muscular physique that I could then even cut down and present in a competition or, just the way that I want to look, and I'm fairly convinced my wife is pretty set on that as well, then, that is the path that's going to get me there and it's going to help me maintain that. So intermittent fasting, for what we advocate in ketogenic bodybuilding, that's going to be a pass for me. So you may want to consider, working into more frequent eating. But if intermittent fasting, if that's just, if that's the shit for you and that's working great for you, carry on. And I'm not here to disrupt your stuff. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. So now I do want to answer some questions. Okay, so we've talked about the cancel culture. We've talked about some keto zealotry. We've talked about intermittent fasting. So these are just some things that over the last couple of weeks when I was trying to get prepared for, retooling of the podcast and the YouTube and episode 8 and all this stuff, I thought, that's something I need to get off my chest, or that's something I need to talk about. So there you go. Hopefully it was entertaining to some degree. So I do want to get to some questions though. These particular questions were given to me off of the Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group. We put up a thread to ask questions for episode 8. And here's a few of what we got. We got a bunch. I picked a few. I don't want to take this too long today. I'm going to make sure all this shit even works. And I hope I don't have to do too much editing to make this all not look like complete and utter dog shit. So to the questions, number one, the first question I think is a very serious question. And I wanted to address it first. And I wanted to give it the most importance. And let me take a little drink of water before I do that. Okay, excuse me. The first question is, who in the hell do they think they're fooling by calling them rice cakes? I get it. I've had cake, you've had cake. Rice cakes are not cake. Rice cakes are like styrofoam cooler lids. And they're actually, in my mind, just a transport mechanism for peanut butter, right? So, where the hell do they get off calling them rice cakes? I never really thought about it until this question was posed. But I can say this, and I thought about this long and hard. Yes, rice cakes are not cake. Rice cakes in any fucking universe are not cake. However, if you're 3 weeks out from a competition and you've been dieting for 12 to 14 weeks, a rice cake can taste like absolute pure orgasmic heaven about 2 to 3 weeks out. I promise you on this. Even a plain ass white, nothing on it rice cake can be just a little freaking chunk of joy, okay? Just that little bit of crunch. And your palate is so starved for flavor and fun and excitement and enjoyment at that particular stage of a cut that, yes, dear listeners, even a rice cake is something to be savored and enjoyed. And if you can smear a little bit of, almond butter on it, even better. And I will even use them as a transport mechanism for scrambled eggs, but that's another conversation. But yes, I do get what you're saying. That's complete and utter bullshit to call a rice cake cake. You should call it a rice disc, maybe. Or just call it styrofoam, edible styrofoam. I don't care. We can discuss that. But yeah, cake, no, it's not cake. However, pretty much anything 2 weeks out is that you can actually chew or crunch is going to be just a little chunk of heaven. So wanted to get that out of the way first. Okay, next question. Is it the surplus of protein intake that is adding the muscle? Or is it the surplus of calories altogether? Or is it a combination of other things that I guess what he's saying is, in a gain phase to put on muscle, is it just total caloric surplus? Is it the surplus of protein in and of itself, or is it a combination? It's definitely a combination. If you're trying to maximize lean mass, if you're going into a gain phase, as I often call it, yes, you're going to need to be in a caloric surplus. Now, I'm going to talk about a keto zealot that I've stumbled across, and it's going to relate to one of the next questions, and I'm going to have a little bit of fun with that. But as much as you're going to hear from some of the keto gurus out there where it's all insulin, it's all insulin, it's all insulin, it's all insulin, yeah, insulin plays a role, for sure. Absolutely. Hormones play a role, for sure. But let me go ahead and tell you once again, let me just beat this drum one more time. Calories matter. They matter. They're going to try to tell you that they don't, but they do. And here's the main reason I think that they're going to try to convince you of this, because everybody is trying to they're trying to put their spin on their version, their dietary program, or their dietary version. So they're going to try to tell you that calories don't matter. And in regard to this particular question, calories absolutely do matter. In order for you to build and maintain lean mass, you have to have enough usable energy, and you need to have a resource of calories to build and maintain lean tissue. You gotta have the machinery in the factory to build the shit. Okay, you definitely do. And it's protein that is the primary builder of that muscle. So you not only do you need to be in a caloric surplus, but you also need to be heavy on the protein. And so yes, it's a combination of the two. Jack your protein, it's your dominant nutrient. Fat is just according to your unique energy needs, and that fat in a gain phase does help you achieve that caloric surplus. One of the reasons why I use MCT oil, because if I'm struggling to reach my caloric surplus for the day, having that 140 calories of MCT oil, which is that I know is just going to go into the mitochondria of my muscle and help me as another high potent fuel source, I'm all over that all day long. So yeah, it is about protein, it is about calories. And don't believe the bullshit when people say calories in, calories out doesn't matter. It absolutely still does. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. And then back to more keto zealotry. When they try to tell you that calories don't matter, they're just trying to spin this in a way and be very arbitrary to try to trick you into thinking that so much more goes into it than just going into a caloric deficit. Now, a caloric deficit is required to lose weight, absolutely. And some other things do factor into that. Absolutely, they do. Insulin does play a role. But if you're not getting into a caloric deficit first, you're not going to lose weight. If you're not going into a caloric surplus first, you're not going to build muscle. These are absolutely required for either one of those two goals to be achieved. Okay, so remember that first. So when the keto gurus out there are telling you this, they're trying to convince you to buy something from them. Now, let me be clear. We are all trying to sell you something. However, think about what is being sold. We all got to make a living. We all got to pay the bills. I got kids to feed and I had to buy this shit, and I live a life and pay the electric bill and the mortgage, feed my family. But here's the thing, if I was selling you a powder or a potion or a book, not that there's anything wrong with that, and I may sell an ebook or a book down the road to just try to help get the message out more. But here's the thing about that is, I don't want to have an interaction with my customer base that is just, you buy this, you go away, I never see you again. The path that I chose is, you listen to me, you put some faith and trust in me, you hire me, I coach you, I help you get results. Now, if I set you up on a nutrition plan or a training plan and you're not achieving some level of results from that, what are you going to do? You're going to fire me, and you should if you're not getting results, provided you've given it ample time and you've trusted the process and you've complied and all these things. So I'm kind of on the hook here. If I'm not providing you with truth to the very best that I know it and believe it in my heart and soul, then if I don't trust that process with every fiber of my being, and then how are you going to get results? If you're not getting results, you're going to do 3 months with me and you're going to say, this didn't work, I'm done. And I couldn't blame you, okay? So, what I'm selling is knowledge and information based on experience and working with data in the trenches over the years. So you got to be careful of the keto gurus out there, or the fitness gurus, or the training gurus out there that are just trying to sell you an arbitrary product and then you have no interaction with that particular person after the fact. So just be wary, because fitness is, at last time I checked, like a $70 billion a year industry. And the thing about fitness is, of those $70 billion that are being spent and invested every year, 98% of the people that are investing in these products and potions and pills and gadgets fail to get the results that they were looking for. But then year after year, they go back and they reinvest, often into the same type of thing. So the problem with that is, psychologically, unfortunately, most people blame themselves rather than blaming the technology that they applied. Or, it could be a combination of the two. So, find something that makes the most rational, logical approach from somebody who seems to have truly tested it, both on themselves and others, and then give them a fair shot, which is another reason why everything I do is month to month. If you got somebody that's only going to sell you something, that's, you got to commit to a year of it, back away from that. Unless there's some fucking legend, then okay, I get it. But, I never want anybody to feel committed with me investing their money in something that they don't believe in. You should always be able to make a choice and a decision to do what you want to do at any given point. So I sort of digressed there, went off on a little rant, but, be careful who you choose to invest in, because oftentimes, they're just trying to sell you some snake oil and not MCT oil. Okay, so next question. Does training with intensity mean lifting to failure, or does it also mean having shorter rest recovery periods between sets? Are you supposed to be fully recovered between sets so you can maximize your next set? Okay, you're never going to be fully recovered between sets. You're only going to be fully recovered between sets if you go home for 2 days and rest that muscle group, okay? So what I do is, for me, the intensity is what I'm putting into that current set, which means I'm going to take at least the last set that I do of an exercise to total failure. And some sets I take beyond into maybe some forced reps or some heavy negatives. I might begin the set with a pre-exhaustion movement. It could be a superset, but that's my level of intensity. Pushing my muscles to the point of momentary concentric failure, and then sometimes even beyond. Now, between sets, shit, man, I may rest 1 minute, I may rest 7 minutes. It's whenever I feel mentally and physically prepared to go give it my all again. And it varies so much. There are some workouts where I do 2 all-out 100% plus sets to total absolute agonizing to the death failure. There are some times I will do 1 set of 70% of my max, then I'll do another set of 80% of my max, and then on the 3rd set, I'll go to 100 and then maybe beyond with a forced rep or something. So it does vary from the workout. It's not like every single workout I do, I'm doing 5 supersets or every exercise is a 100 rep rest pause set. It's not like that at all. I may do 1 rest pause set of workout, or I may do none. I vary it throughout my training cycle. So I'm always mixing it up and keeping it intense and keeping it varied. This is program design. This is what coaches do. So, but I also want to make sure that I'm maximizing my recovery. I'm doubling down on that shit, because until that muscle has not only compensated, but overcompensated from the stress that you're applying to it, will you maximize the level of growth that you're looking for? So that's what that means to me, okay? Okay, next up. Can I really put on mass on keto? Let's see, then he says, I'm consuming 4,000 calories. I feel good. The body looks full, but I feel small. And strength has declined, but I'm not looking so much for strength. Okay. Well, dude, if you feel small, just keep training hard. I mean, if you just said your body's looking good, you're feeling full, which means the muscles are full, which means you're adequately feeding them, and obviously with 4,000 calories a day, provided the protein is high enough and you're choosing good nutrient dense foods, yes, you can definitely build muscle on keto. It's if you're in a caloric surplus and you're getting adequate protein and you're getting energy from healthy fats, or if you're sprinkling, fast absorbing carbohydrates around workouts and you're getting some insulin secretion, you're doing those refeeds, yes, absolutely 100% you can build muscle on keto, okay? So that question is a lead into something else I wanted to have a little bit of fun today. And then we'll wrap things up, because I think I've already went on too long. But can you build muscle on keto? Okay, I talked about some of the keto gurus out there, the keto zealots out there, and you got to be careful who you listen to. And, even me, I mean, just look at everything through a rational, logical lens, ask questions, whatever. If something smells funny, it means it's, probably going bad. So you might want to walk away from it. There is let me preface this by saying I don't like to pick on people, and I don't like to name names. I truly don't. Even people in the industry I admire, I typically just don't bring it up, unless it directly applies to something I'm doing. But there is we'll call him a keto guru, self-proclaimed keto guru out there. His name is Dr. Berg, B-E-R-G. And you know what, though? Dr. Berg seems like a really, really nice guy. He seems like this gentle soul on his YouTube channels. I'm sure he'd just be lovely to hang out and drink a beer with. But Dr. Berg, I've watched a couple of videos, and some of them are pretty cringeworthy with some of the things he's spewing out there, that he's really kind of twisted and manipulated. And he's one of these guys that thinks calories don't matter, and he thinks it's all about insulin, and it's all about hormones, da-da-da-da-da-da. But here's the thing, there are plenty of people out there that'll pick that apart. That's not my job. That's not what I do. I'm about building extreme physiques, okay? So Dr. Berg, he crept into my wheelhouse a little bit. And that's where I got to pump the brakes and say, whoa, 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 whoa. This is one I got to address, okay? So Dr. Berg who I guarantee you, he's probably never been inside of a gym before, I'm guessing. But if he has, he certainly didn't lift any weights. He's the guy on the treadmill at Planet Fitness, because the guy looks like he weighs about 155 pounds soaking wet and hasn't lifted a thing in his life. But if that's what Dr. Berg chooses to do, that's great. You know, we don't all dress alike, whatever. But don't go on YouTube and do a lengthy video with your whiteboard and call that video how to build muscle on keto. Because what he did was this. Number one is he is telling people that you can build muscle, adequate muscle, by incorporating a lot of intermittent fasting. And he's also, didn't we talk about that? I think we talked about that. He's also advocating building muscle on 1 or 2 meals a day. I think we talked about that. Did we not talk about that? He's not a big protein proponent. You know, he talks, you know, he'd be very, very happy if you took in 20 to 25% of your macros allotment from protein only. I think we've talked about that. But here's where he crossed the line with me. He throws up this big freaking picture of my favorite bodybuilder of all time, 6-time Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates. The first mass monster, the guy known for unbelievable intensity in the gym, the guy that, you know, most people couldn't even hang with through 10 minutes of a workout, let alone an entire workout. You know, this guy kind of raised the bar on high intensity brutality in the gym. And you're going to reference Dorian Yates, Dr. Berg, and talk about building muscle? Well, number one, let me go ahead and tell you something that you may not have thought through. Dorian Yates was nearly 300 pounds in the off season and competed anywhere from the 240s to the 270s on stage, if I'm not mistaken. And Dorian Yates was definitely not eating 1 or 2 meals a day. Dorian Yates was not only consuming 20% of his macros from protein. Dorian Yates was probably eating 5,000 calories of fucking chicken and rice every day, more carbohydrates, so many carbohydrates it would probably terrify you and push you into the fetal position crying under the bed, okay? So for God's sake, not only are there 1,000 holes in your theory about building muscle on keto, and if the majority of my viewers and my listeners were to listen to that, they would not build anything even close to the vision in their head of what they wanted to achieve. So for God's sake, for the love of Pete, you don't reference an IFBB pro mass monster, Mr. Olympia bodybuilder in the same conversation where you're telling me that calories don't matter, that I can build muscle on 20% protein, intermittent fasting, and 1 to 2 meals a day. Please don't rip apart people's intelligence, because that's where I got to draw the line. So, you know, that yes, you can build muscle on keto if you do a hybrid. And we've talked about this so many times, you should know it like the back of your hand. High protein, moderate fat to meet your energy requirements and to help with, you know, hormonal balance. Carbohydrates are a useful tool that you use around your workouts to help fuel activity and muscular contractions, to help with the generation of some insulin response. You have structured refeeds 1 day a week. Hell, there are some people that will do 2 refeeds a week. It really truly depends on the person. I got some guys that can do 600-700 grams of carbohydrate on a Sunday after depleting all week and still doing targeted carbs around their workouts, and they're lean, mean, muscular, and jacked, and definitely not overweight, and they don't look like Dr. Berg, okay? So once again, the moral of this story is to kind of, you know, take a few steps back here, is be careful who you listen to. For a guy for a chiropractor who is a self-proclaimed keto guru, who probably weighs about 160 pounds soaking freaking wet to come on and tell me to imply that you can look like a Mr. Olympia by only eating 2 meals a day and fasting because of the growth hormone surge that you're going to get from this. Well, number one, endogenous growth hormone secretion is negligible at best and not going to make a big difference in putting on lean mass, because that's not really what growth hormone does anyway, okay? So he's misleading you there as well. So just to recap, if your goal is to build that elite muscular physique, to be ripped, jacked, lean, shredded, separated, peeled with these 3D muscles, I would back away from the 1 meal a day, the 25% protein, and, you know, and to try to like marry that philosophy in the same conversation with a legend, you know, Mr. Olympia bodybuilder, is absolute insanity to me. So please, for the love of God, you might want to take that one down, because that one just makes you look a little silly, brother. Okay, just a word of advice. I mean, you know, who am I? But that's just what I would say. So, okay, one more question. And this actually wasn't a question, it was a request. And it was from one of our beautiful female members who she requested a tell-all from Nancy. Who's Nancy? Nancy's my wife. She's actually on one of the YouTube videos. We kind of did a little getaway at the beach for Valentine's Day. It's very sweet. It's a very sweet story. We cooked, we shopped. It was lovely. But they want to tell all from Nancy, and I get that, because I've brought her up many times, and I think the reason they want that is because, you know, I've gone on record by saying that my wife of 25 years is one of the most supportive bodybuilding prep wives of all time. I mean, this woman tolerates my horse shit, not just during our typical month, but even through a 12-week freaking brutal cut and all the bullshit that goes with it. And not only that, you know, she's the type that without me saying a word will go buy, you know, 5 pounds of or more of freaking the exact ratio of lean ground beef that I want, and bring that shit home and separate it and weigh it into 12 to 14 ounce servings. She'll shrink wrap that shit into these little, you know, bags and divide it up and put it into the freezer and label everything with Sharpie markers. Yeah, that's what she does. This is the same woman that was pulling out a fucking potato in the elevator of a competition that I was doing because I needed to start carbing up, and I didn't even know what planet I was on. So she's whipping out freaking baked potatoes from her purse and basically just hand feeding them to me in the elevator. And as she was pushing me around, you know, the registration and weigh-in area, because I didn't know where the hell I was at that point. I was so damn depleted. So there are a lot of people out there that talk about, you got to have that support, that maybe they don't have that support from a significant other. They don't have that support from a spouse, or maybe there's somebody out there that wants to lend that support but doesn't understand what it looks like. So maybe having her on here to tell a few tales from the battlefield might be interesting. It's probably just going to make me look like an idiot because she knows me better than anybody, and only God knows what she's going to say. But the planets are going to have to align for that to happen, and she's probably going to need a new outfit and probably need to get her hair done. You know how that stuff goes. But she likes to be in the background, but I don't think it would take too much prodding to maybe get her on here. So I'm going to look into that and see if I can make that happen. So I hope that might be something that you guys might like to enjoy. And very, very lastly, this question: how long does calorie restriction eating plan usually last? How long does a cut last? And I'm saving that for episode 9, where we're going to talk about expectation versus reality of getting results. We live in a quick fix culture. We live in a culture where everybody wants it tomorrow, overnight, in 30 days, in 60 days. Yeah, I've had people, after only working with me for 30 or 60 days, wonder why they're not ready to stand on stage and compete with the Miss Bikini Olympia. So, but fair enough, maybe it is good to maybe break down that there are so many variables and so many factors, and there's so much more involved, and patience is a virtue, and we're going to kind of break that down a little bit. So I'm going to save that element of that question for next week when we talk about expectations versus reality in terms of you getting the results that you set out to get. So fair enough. See, that sets me up for next week. So at least you know there's going to be a number 9. So, but I'm going to leave it there because I think I've gone on long enough, and Lord God knows how long it's going to take to edit all this crap. So once again, if you like any of this, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on one of the major podcast formats, if they've got a subscribe button, if they've got a follow button, or if they give you the ability to review, I'd truly appreciate if you do that. It goes a long way in getting us out there and letting those algorithms work, and that it would suggest our podcast or our YouTube channel to other like-minded people watching similar channels out there that we may get exposed to. So it would really, really help us. We do all this stuff for free, so a little help would go a long way. So thank you for all your support. This was fun. We'll be back next week for episode 9, but until then, train your ass off. Eat a big freaking steak. Get lots of rest, and above all, have a great day. Bye, guys.